When all is said and done, ultimately, whether you eat fufu with your fingers or spoon, whether you drink your soup with your spoon, or you eat your rice with spoon or fork, what ultimately matters is getting the results and giving enough people confidence that you can actually execute the strategies that you propound and that you talk about. And that is the big task for Coach Otuado. Oh, you're smiling, aren't you, as most Ghanaians are? Perhaps you're having a feeling of relief, or is it absolution, or perhaps vindication? I'm sure it's a coach rather who will be having a feeling of vindication. It ended 2-1 in Stuttgart between Ghana and Germany. The Germans striking in the 88th minute through Dennis Undav to win the game, just at a point where Ghanaians felt they were going to have a 1-1 draw, which would have been the first time that they have gone undefeated in a game against the Germans. Germany scored into injury time of the first half when Kai Havertz converted a penalty kick that had been given the Germans after a handball by Jonas Ajete. And then in the 70th minute, substitute Fatal scored for Ghana, and then in the 88th minute, Dennis Undav scored to win the game for Germany. So what have we learned? Well, Otuado will probably be the happiest man in the world because this results was a complete contrast and opposite to the performance and the scores from the game against Austria. I'm convinced that Ghana totally disrespected Austria, thought this was a game of equals, thought that this was a game where they could experiment, try a few things. You could tell from the players' body language, they didn't expect Austria to score as many goals as they did. But that game turned out to be the wake-up call. The harsh reality of the scoreline and the response of the public appears to have shaken up the Ghanaian team going into this game against Germany. The strange thing was that only 2 changes were made by Coach Otuado, but the key highlights for me was that he knew what his tactical plan was, whether it was the eating of the fufu with the hand, eating of the rice with the fork, or the drinking of the soup with the spoon. He seemed to have set out his team with 3 at the back when attacking, 5 at the back when defending, essentially a 5-4-1, and they stuck to it, apart from a few rocky moments in the early stages of the game when the Germans had the Ghanaians pinned and living dangerously with their goal area, bubbling with a lot of activity. Once the Black Stars settled, it was quite clear that they were going to cede possession to the Germans and take advantage of the transitions to get the goals. And there were a few chances. Although I have to say that Ghana had only 1 shot on target as against 6 by the Germans. That shot on target was Fatao's 70th minute goal. It means Ghana barely threatened the Germans. It took up to the 17th minute for Ghana to have a fair shot on goal, which was not on target. And that was a very limp effort by Sebo, who I had predicted should have been benched, but did have a relatively stable game, which was an improvement on his performance in the game against Austria. So what worked? The tactical discipline of the players, the coach setting his team up with certainty and being realistic enough to know that the Germans were going to bust the midfield and have most of the match. Unlike the Austrian game, Ghana came into this game very conscious of the fact that they could be overrun by the Germans. They also set up respecting the Germans, but not being completely intimidated by the Germans. And so in the 50-50 balls and in all the second balls, Ghana was better. In the aerial duels, although the Germans started with Walter, who is such a tall player, the Black Stars gave themselves a fighting chance by being more competitive in this. Then there was the issue of the discipline of the team in terms of the positional discipline. Caleb Yoinchi retained his position on the right, this time not as a right back, but as a right wing back. But he certainly performed better. For Kone on the other side, except for a few occasions where the Germans exposed the left-hand side of our defense, including what led to their winning goal, it was obvious he had a much better game. And this is evidenced also by the fact that he provided the assist for Abdul Fattah to score the goal that gave Ghana the equalizer. Well, for me, the key moments in the game would have to be especially the 70th minute when Ghana managed to score that goal through Abdul Fattah, because what it did was to give us a glimmer of hope at some point that we could end this game without defeat. Indeed, Some even thought before the Germans scored that we could nick it and end up winning this game by 2-1. Of course, that didn't happen. It was the Germans in the end who managed to win. Honorable mentions to most players on the field of play. Benjamin Asare came into the game. He had some shaky moments where he couldn't claim balls that he came out for. But ultimately, he showed a lot of confidence, which not just oozed out of him, but seemed to have infected the backline. A backline always thrives when you have a goalkeeper who brings confidence and command into his area. And he made some telling saves in the end. And was a bit lucky because that Walter Mada header that came up against the crossbar could easily have been a second goal at the time for the Germans. More honorable mentions also to Edu Kwapena Prince, because in the first game he held the line. He was trusted to do that again by Otuado. He did that beautifully. The big question mark is around his finishing instinct and his ability to put away chances. Jordan Ayew was extremely dynamic today in his ability to fit into the number 10 position. The pace has deserted him and we'll have to live with that. But his ability to hold up play and his ability to distribute the ball at key moments and keep calm, and his ability to sometimes put in the dirty work. For instance, when Leonard took the ball and danced around the Ghanaian defense, it was Jordan who came back to intercept him and to prevent him from creating any danger against Ghana. So, and again, more honorable mentions. We can't also completely rule out the position of Antoine Semenyo. In the first game, we complained about how Antoine Semenyo had a minimal role. Now, the setup in this German game gave him more freedom and gave him the ability to be part of the team. Except very often, because the Ghanaian team had retreated so much into their half, he was left isolated or did not have much support when he went onto the balls. But there were moments that showed that Semenyo thrives on speed and thrives on pace. And if he's put into those positions, he could then put Ghana in very dangerous situations against their opponent. So, what is the way forward? This game has again exposed Ghana's lack of a reliable goal scorer. When watching this game, somebody remarked to me and said, I miss Asamoah Gyan, because if Asamoah Gyan was there, he would be making particular runs into the box that would have secured Ghana a goal. And that particularly was the case in the 26th minute when Antoine Semenyo went down the right and squared the ball and nobody made that telling run towards the 6-yard box. So where will Ghana's goals come from during the 2026 World Cup? This is still something that Ghana has to fix, because it doesn't matter how many chances you create. If you do not have a striker with deadly instinct to at least guarantee you goals and have others complement them with goals, you have no chance of winning matches. The other big question, of course, it is the biggest question, is Otuado still the man? I think we should judge Otuado based on what he does at the World Cup, assuming he still keeps his role. And I think he should keep his role as he goes into the World Cup, because he has shown that whilst he may not always put premium on the friendly matches, he knows exactly what he wants to do. And if he gets the execution right, with just a few other add-ons, he could actually end up winning games. And we know that for sure, because that's how Milovan Rajevac played in the 2010 World Cup. Set up defensively, work through the transitions. The only difference being that he had reliable goal scorers and he had very experienced players who could bring into execution the strategy. The other big question then becomes, what reinforcement possibly will the Ghana Black Stars have ahead of the World Cup? Well, that debate about who is changing nationality in time for the World Cup will come back onto the table. Because what we've seen over the last two matches is that a team would require options in a big tournament like the World Cup. And Ghana, as it stands now, off the bench, does not have the depth in squad. And for a 26-man squad, Ghana could do with extra reinforcement, apart from those players who are coming back from injury. So, 2 matches against Austria and Germany, no wins, no draws, 2 losses, but a morale-boosting loss to Germany in the final game. Perhaps it gives Otuado a bit of a relief. Perhaps it gives him a bit of a breathing space. But make no mistake, Ghana is still a team under construction. The comparisons to the 2006 and 2010 squad, unfortunately, are unfair and are comparing apples and oranges, because we don't have the same depth of squad. So the big question then becomes, between now and June 11th, when the World Cup kicks off. What can possibly change both at the technical level in terms of how Otuado and his technical team configure how the Black Stars will play against each of its opponents, and what sort of reinforcement and drills and team cohesion can we build to ensure that when the Black Stars walk onto the pitch, they will have both the mastery, the strategy, the tactical discipline, and the killer instinct to finish off opponents. Remember, in the World Cup, you don't have to win all your group stages to qualify for the second round stage. In 2010, we needed just a win and a draw. In 2006, yes, we had 2 victories, but ultimately in a 48-team tournament, you could also qualify as one of the big third-place team. So this will come down to execution, 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 and how the Black Stars are able to do that. When all is said and done, ultimately, whether you eat fufu with your fingers or spoon, whether you drink your soup with your spoon, or you eat your rice with spoon or fork, what ultimately matters is getting the results and giving enough people confidence that you can actually execute the strategies that you propound and that you talk about. And that is the big task for Coach Otuado. It's not about the smart talk. I get the impression sometimes that Coach Otuado's biggest challenge is that he's straight talking. Culturally, from a German perspective, he may articulate things in a particular way. And so perhaps we have to cut him some slack. But the ultimate marking scheme to judge whether or not he can do this job is the results on the pitch. And in the World Cup, if he gets that far, that is what will have to be proven in order to keep him in the job. This is VAR. My name is Sammy Bartels. Subscribe to our pages, love and like our content, and stay with us as we bring you the very best in football, in sports, as we build up towards the World Cup. For your 2026 World Cup, this is the platform to be on. We'll see you for the next edition of VAR.